What happens when defending my driveway against a raging neighbor turns into an electrifying showdown? Sometimes, standing your ground comes with a shocking twist.
Before we begin today's deranged HOA story, tell me you haven't had your fill of irrational and power-grabbing HOA nonsense. Smash that like button to show you're on my side, and drop a comment if you've ever faced off against an overbearing homeowners association.
The tension in the air was palpable as I stood there, my coffee cooling in my hand, staring at Karen, who had turned my quiet Saturday into a full-blown episode of As the Entitlement Turns. She stood there, arms crossed, radiating a blend of rage and moral superiority that felt almost palpable. Like a seasoned gladiator about to take on a broken toaster, I summoned every ounce of calm. Excuse me, Karen. I managed to squeak out, my voice straddling the line between assertive and quivering like a bowl of jelly. That's my charger, and this is my driveway. She tilted her head, and in that moment, I could practically see the gears turning in her mind. Was she constructing an argument? Planning a counter-offensive? I honestly couldn't tell. With her piercing blue eyes narrowing, she shot back. Well, Ethan, we should all be sharing clean energy, don't you think? By not letting me use this charger, you're like gatekeeping it. Oh, bless the heavens above. Who knew my driveway had quickly transformed into the United Nations of electric vehicles? I couldn't believe my ears. I glanced behind her to see if there was a hidden camera somewhere. Surely this outrageous scene was part of a comedy sketch gone wrong. Stepping back to take a breath, I reminded myself that while Karen's sense of entitlement could inspire movies, this was real life, or as real as my neighbor's strange encounters could get. Would she challenge me next to a duel for the last cookie in the jar? At that moment, Tommy appeared out of nowhere, his colorful gym were a welcome burst of energy in this dull showdown. The guy had a knack for timing. "What are you doing, Karen? Trying to take Ethan's sunlight too?" he chirped, half laughing, no doubt catching the ridiculousness of the situation. I couldn't help but chuckle nervously, feeling the pressure in my chest begin to ease slightly. Karen shot him a look that could melt diamonds, but I adored how Tommy stepped up like a trusty sidekick in a superhero movie. "Look, Karen," I began again, feeling a spark of courage ignited by my friend's vibe. "I'm all for clean energy, but this is my property, and you can't just help yourself like a kid in a candy store." Her response was, to put it mildly, ludicrous. "You're being unreasonable, Ethan. Everyone should pay homage to the Green Revolution. It's about community." Did she just invoke community while bulldozing across my personal boundaries? The absurdity! It felt like I was being thrust into an episode of a courtroom drama, where the judge was Judge Judy and simultaneously Mr. Rogers. Fueled by a mixture of incredulity and a newfound determination, I made an impulsive decision. Maybe it was the coffee, or maybe it was a moment of divine intervention, but I thought, what if I gave her a taste of her own medicine? After all, they say revenge is a dish best served, well, electrically charged. That's when the idea hit me like a bolt of lightning. I mean, if she believed my driveway was outfitted with public property privileges, I could throw in a little surprise of my own. A delightful little spark. I told Tommy my plan, and his face went from surprise to scroll my phone levels of glee. "Are you seriously going to electrify your charger, man?" he asked, halfway between impressed and worried. "Oh yes, I would make this a lesson in boundaries." With my mind racing, I quickly sketched out a plan, a shockingly brilliant, pun intended one. I'd wire the charger so that on any unauthorized use, it would deliver just enough energy to make anyone doing double takes question their life choices. Could I really do it? Would that make me the mad scientist of the cul-de-sac? Over the next several days, I went into full stealth mode, turning my garage into a DIY workshop. With Tommy's help, we gathered supplies, black market wiring, electrical tape, coffee-fueled brainstorming sessions, and maybe even a few diagrams I found in Electrifying Ideas for Dummies. With each passing day, the anticipation bubbled in my gut. I could hardly wait to see Karen's reaction when she tried to plug in next. I envisioned her yanking away from the source of her energy like she'd stuck her finger in a socket. And honestly, the image made me laugh hard enough that I almost regretted the sneaky plot. But this was essential. A battle for my driveway and sanity. Who knew I'd be risking shock therapy for my sense of peace? When at last everything was in place, and the electrifying contraption was complete, I felt like a scientist revealing a thrilling experiment. My heart raced with excitement, and I could practically hear the drum roll in my head. The following Saturday dawned bright and glorious, just like the last. Would she return? Oh, she most certainly would. I left my house, holding my breath, waiting for Karen to make her appearance with that unrealistic confidence of hers that usually could part the Red Sea. I leaned against my mailbox, feeling like a Cheshire cat waiting for a mouse to stumble into the trap. Would she dare? Would my little electric surprise light up her life with undeniable consequences? All I knew was, the stage was set for the imminent showdown in epic, electric fashion. The day arrived with all its vibrant glory, the sun shining down as if it were the spotlight for the epic standoff I'd be hosting. I couldn't shake the giddiness from deep within my gut. The nervous energy of anticipation coursed through me. I took a moment to admire my handiwork, my electrified charger glowing like a forbidden gemstone, ready to unleash a zesty surprise. Tommy, my loyal accomplice, had already set up a lawn chair across the street, enjoying the show like a sports fan, relishing the final game of the season. Dressed in his workout gear, he was practically pulsating with excitement as he aimed his phone camera at any potential trespassers, as if he were the professional pap ever since he'd heard my scheme. "This is going to be legendary," he mouthed, his eyes twinkling with mischief. As if summoned by the gods of absurdity, there was Karen, strutting down the street like she owned the whole neighborhood, decked out in a crimson blazer that teetered dangerously between power dressing and "look at me, I'm authoritative." She approached my driveway with the glint of entitlement dancing in her icy blue eyes. My heart raced. There she was, the one-woman embodiment of the phrase, "Are you kidding me?" She reached my driveway with an expression that said, "I dare you to challenge me," as she magnified her head tilt, assessing my charger with a sharp, judgmental glare like a hawk, sizing up a particularly naive rabbit. I could feel Tommy vibrating beside me, scarcely able to contain his laughter as Karen zeroed in on her target, the ignorant usurper of her so-called rightful share of renewable energy. I leaned against the mailbox like a cowboy in an old Western film, a smirk creeping onto my face as she leaned over to inspect the charger's cord. The anticipation hung thick, my electric plans bringing an exhilarating thrill that kept my nerves at bay. Just then, I caught sight of Tommy vigorously nodding at me from across the street, his eyes widening for my next move. "Go for it," he whispered using exaggerated hand gestures, his unprecedented enthusiasm compelling me to bring my performance to the next act. With full confidence, I took my spot behind the shadows of my garage, preparing for what was about to unfold as I braced myself for a visceral reaction that culminated from her misguided confidence. "Let's see how you handle an electric lesson on boundaries," I muttered under my breath, half excited and half hysterical. And then it happened. Karen grabbed the charger without a second thought, giving it a tug as she flipped her designer bag to the side, clearly ready to charge up that fabulously impractical little SUV of hers. That was when I pressed my hidden little button, the kind of gadget that seemed more like the finale of a magic show than an electrical engineering feat. As if on cue, a high-pitched siren erupted from my charger, shrieking like an obnoxious alarm clock during finals week, followed by a jolt, just enough to send a harmless yet startling buzz through the handle. Karen jerked backward, her fingers losing grip as she squeaked out a sound indistinguishable from a parched parakeet, her expression caught between shock and outrage. The stellar view had Tommy almost rolling on the grass with laughter, and I could hardly contain my amused reaction as I peeked at the spectacle unfolding. Karen Thompson, the audacious energy thief, finds herself the victim of her own delusions. I imagined myself narrating dramatically, drawing from the seasoned instincts of haunted carnival announcers. All at once, the scene morphed into a perfect comedic tableau, her mouth flapping open and closed like a goldfish, while the neighborhood rooster crowed triumphantly in the background, cheering the absurd drama. "Oh my goodness, what have you done?" Karen exclaimed, her facade of professionalism crumbling like a poorly constructed sandcastle. My laughter erupted. I felt buoyed by the delicious victory over her entitlement. "Just a gentle reminder that my driveway is private property, Karen." Care to share this lesson with your community meeting? I shot back, my tone light-hearted yet firm, enjoying her shocked experience cascading like an absurd opera. Watching her huff and puff, practically fuming with indignation, somehow made my otherwise boring Saturday turn into a viral masterpiece, and I was here for it all. When the siren finally quieted, she was left gaping like a fish out of water, her professional demeanor deflating like an overly ambitious balloon animal. Tommy leaned against the fence, tears streaming down his face from laughter, small gasps echoing with every incredulous thing Karen shouted. "You should definitely invest in a neighborhood watch membership," he quipped between breaths, trying and failing to maintain a serious front. "I hear the local population is in dire need of an entertainment committee." I turned my attention back to Karen, whose face resembled that of an angry tomato, her critique of my shocking actions oscillating somewhere between furious disbelief and crushed superiority. Yet, even through her sputtering threats of legal action, I felt the weight of ephemeral victory lingering in the air, buoyant like good vibes on a sunny day. Would my shocking lesson in boundaries become a local legend, or perhaps an ongoing saga of confrontation? Only time would tell. The scene unfolded in slow motion, and there I stood, basking in my newfound triumph like a toddler who had just taken their first wobbly step. Karen Thompson, the woman who'd turned property disputes into a sport, was there in all her infuriated glory, caught in a whirlwind of disbelief and anger. Her porcelain skin turned a shade of shocking crimson, and I could see the gears turning in her mind, processing the audacity of this abominable act against her right to public property, as she so artfully claimed. Every stammer and puff of indignation was like music to my ears, a cacophony of entitlement being dismantled by an electric cord. I couldn't help but lean into my newfound role as the self-appointed defender of boundaries, and while I wasn't wearing a superhero cape, my mind had detached from reality and slipped into the realm of total comedy. "Do you even know what you're doing?" she finally spat, her blue eyes flashing like broken neon lights. The moment was eerily reminiscent of an exaggerated cartoon. An uproarious villain caught in their own clever trap while the plucky hero relishes the sweet taste of victory. I held back laughter, carefully calibrating my tone to project nonchalance over the absurdity unfolding before me. "Well, Karen, I couldn't let your entitlement go unchallenged, now could I?" My voice dripped with sugary sweetness, while underneath it all my heart kept pounding with a wild mix of glee and disbelief at the dramatic confrontation. I wanted nothing more than to blow a rogue kiss at her soaring indignation, but I opted for showcasing my electric lesson instead. Tommy was a riot. I could see he was holding back a full-on guffaw stifled behind one hand, while the other struggled not to capture every steamy moment on his phone. Who could blame him? Karen's face was a mix between that of a house cat with a bad haircut and a raccoon that had just encountered a particularly aggressive trash can. The intensity shot up tenfold, and one could almost hear the hinges of her entitled personality creaking as she tried to justify her outrageous expectations. "I have rights. This is public property, and you'll hear from my lawyer," she shouted, punctuating her threats like a toddler wielding a crayon, trying to color outside the lines she had so fraudulently drawn upon our neighborhood. "Oh, Karen, bless your heart," I replied, only half joking, suddenly feeling like I was floating above the insanity around me. "I hate to break it to you, but legally, it's really private property." In that moment, her outrage only made me bolder. Here I was, confirmed in my position as the righteous, proud steward of my driveway, holding the moral high ground while leaning back in casual nonchalance. What had started as an innocent defense of my realm was morphing into an unintended comedy special, and I was loving every second of it. Who knew that electrifying my charger would yield such comedic tension? In a last-ditch effort to salvage her unraveling authority, Karen fished her phone out of her designer bag, her fingers flipping through screens with the dexterity of a caffeinated squirrel. Her eyes darted around as if suddenly concerned about every neighbor watching this circus unfold. I imagine that she concocted a myriad of ways to twist this occurrence into a tragic narrative for her next HOA meeting, a saga of woe. I couldn't help but look at Tommy and stifle a laugh while shooting him a "Can you believe this?" glance. He too was swept up in the theatricality of it all, capturing every bit of hilarity, The whole neighborhood now unofficially privy to the great driveway showdown happening on a quiet suburban evening. As Karen finally turned her attention back toward me, determination shifting her features from outrage to the purest form of desperation, I felt akin to a magician ready to unveil his next illusion, one that would definitely floor her. "How do you even know the law? You've probably never touched a law book in your life," she retorted, and her indignation was almost palpable, like a rubber band drawn to its breaking point. In truth, I was wholly unqualified in legal matters, but that just seemed minor nitpicking in the face of my newfound bravado. I raised an eyebrow, a bunny-eared grin spreading on my face. I may not have read the books, but I have all the pertinent info stored on my trusty neighbor's lawn. The volley was aimed squarely at her judgment. The atmosphere was almost electrifying in its tension, ready to explode like bad reality TV. Yet somewhere beneath the tumult, I found solace in the ridiculousness of it all. Karen, the neighborhood queen of controversy, was losing her grip, and the ever-encroaching realization gnawed at her insides. Tommy's glee could practically be seen as steam as he let out a soft but distinct squeal of laughter that somehow punctuated my retort. "Looks like someone missed out on the Community Etiquette 101 class. This can't be good for your resume, can it, Karen?" I chimed, my tone brimming with impish delight, watching her unraveling claims like a cookie dough under pressure. Would she ever recover from this electric blunder? Or was it time to bid her a dramatic retreat, with tails tucked away and dignity long lost? Just as she opened her mouth, likely preparing another futile barrage of accusations, a thought darted through my mind. This might turn into the suburban legend that echoed for years in our community. Yes, indeed. I could already visualize it becoming a neighborhood folklore where future property disputes would be quipped with, "Remember the time Karen tried to charge her car on Ethan's electrified driveway?" I was consumed by exhilaration, hovering at that edge of anticipation like the landing of a roller coaster. What an outrageous experience, and I couldn't help but await what came next. Would Karen shuffle off into the night, licking her wounds? Or would she wield her sharp tongue one last time, revealing new breathtaking levels of adversity within our quirky neighborhood? The possibilities spun through my mind like a whimsical dance party in the backyard. Amidst the palpable chaos, I found myself floating on a cloud of pure adrenaline, a superhero dressed in khaki shorts rather than spandex, ready to face down the formidable forces of entitlement. With Karen caught in a whirlwind of her own making, I savored the clarity that came from being in the right. I could practically hear the whispers of my neighbors, a chorus of shared disbelief, and a few muffled chuckles as they peeked through curtains or over garden fences. It was a scene worthy of an Oscar nomination. Who knew that all I had to do was pepper my driveway with a little circuitry to unleash this wild performance? I mentally traced the lineage of this absurdity back to her initial invasion of my peaceful domain. Her audacity had unwittingly birthed my moment of electric rebellion, and I couldn't have felt more alive. Tommy, my trusty sidekick in this melodrama, was living for the moment. He was practically vibrating with comedic energy, phone in hand to document every flailing arm movement from Karen as she harped about her rights. I could see the sparks of hilarity dance in his eyes as he struggled to contain his laughter. "Just wait until you post this," I whispered to him, grinning as he nodded with a barely contained smirk. We both knew this moment was viral video gold, high-stakes Karen. I could see the clickbait headline now. In the world of social media, her entitled performance would be viewed like a masterclass in absurdity, ratings sky high. I could picture the comments flooding in. Did she really just scream public property while zapping herself? I was on the verge of another chuckle fit, the electric charge of the moment embedding itself in my very essence. Public property? Ha! I exclaimed, shaking my head dramatically while feigning seriousness. How could I possibly allow such transgressions on my well-manicured domain? She was inching on the brink of transformation, from furious fury to a full theatrical meltdown. Underneath her sharply tailored blazer sat a volcano of indignation just waiting to explode, and I was the unfortunate witness to her fiery eruption. "You know, Karen, it's not public property when it's literally in my home, right?" I grinned again, delighted as I felt my newfound confidence bubble up, buoyed by the chaos unfolding in front of me. Or are you just clamoring for properties that don't belong to you? What's next? Demanding my swimming pool becomes a neighborhood splash zone? Finally, Karen's expression morphed. It transitioned from that fiery red rage to a concoction of bewilderment and desperation, as if she had just realized she'd forgotten the punchline to a joke she had just incredibly botched. In that split second, a flicker of doubt crossed her sharp blue eyes. Was she beginning to grasp that her world of entitlement had taken a tumble into the absurd? I leaned in ever so slightly, relishing the moment. "You know, dear Karen," I staged whispered while signaling to Tommy to keep filming, "you might need a new playbook if public outrage and the law are your weapons of choice." At this rate, I was probably a couple of Snickers away from a full-on sitcom episode. In a strangled growl, she retorted at me, "You'll rue this day, Ethan Parker." An unbelievable mixture of offense and amusement painted her words vividly, and it was as if she was auditioning for a role in The Real Housewives of Suburbia. "Perhaps I will, Karen," I shot back, summoning a twinkle of mischief in my eye. "But not for any reasons you might think. I'll rue the delay of having a perfectly functional driveway gate, a state-of-the-art electric charger for my green thinking adventures." Then it struck me. I could take my newfound comedic routine and launch it into a full-fledged neighborhood campaign for property rights awareness. Could there be a traitorous uprising from my neighbors willing to join forces? Suddenly, visions of community meetings flashed before my eyes like a luscious sunset, ripe with excited discussions and maybe even a neighborhood potluck, converging on the subject of property rights. But before my imagination could spiral into full-blown neighborly revolution, Karen's face twisted in pure defiance. "You think you can just zap me into compliance?" she shouted, raising her finger in that classic dramatic fashion. Oh, how the performance was escalating into an epic showdown. The real tension was palpable now, both of our neighbors unraveling their audacious roast of self-righteousness. It was the kind of riveting back and forth that would compel future generations to nod knowingly, as young folk would regale each other with stories of the day Karen went zappy. I mean, how could anyone resist a tale wrapped in such absurd conflict over an electrified charger? Just when I thought the plot couldn't thicken any further, a lingering moment hovered between us, heavy with possibilities like the pull of gravity before a roller coaster ride. I could sense the crowd tightening around us, neighbors inching closer to catch the surreal spectacle from my driveway. Our suburban Netflix special was unfolding with lightning speed, a visual crescendo diminishing into echoes of roaring laughter and uncertainty. I realized it was now or never, as Karen elevated her finger toward the heavens like an accusing member of the Inquisition. I turned to her, smirking just enough to challenge her authority. "You may try to conquer my driveway, Karen, but it shall remain electrified, vibrant, and undeniably mine," I declared boldly, the crowd now watching with bated breath. Could she truly come back from the brink of absolutism, or was this a moment destined for the annals of neighborhood legend? Only time would tell as I readied myself for her next move. In the midst of our escalating showdown, the neighbors formed a semicircle, their expressions a cocktail of disbelief and glee as they gravitated closer to my driveway, soaking in the absurdity of the confrontation. I could hear hushed whispers mixed with muffled laughs, a perfect blend of reality TV meets stand-up comedy. Tommy, now an enthusiastic self-appointed commentator, began narrating our hilarious standoff like a sports announcer at the most improbable championship match. And here we have an epic clash between Ethan, the eco-warrior, and Karen, the titan of entitlement. Who will reign supreme on this driveway battlefield? His playful taunts transformed my anxiety into a bubbling laughter that echoed throughout the crowd. The absurd circus we had created was now irreversibly tangled in the weird tapestry of our tiny suburb, and I was here for every electrifying moment. As I squared my shoulders, I felt an invigorating surge of courage. "Listen, Karen," I shouted, masking my glee under the guise of seriousness. "This driveway isn't just a slab of concrete. It's my sanctuary, my castle. And far from being public property, it's part of a delicate ecosystem of shrubbery and solar chargers that actually produce clean energy. We can't have people like you trampling through it willy-nilly, spouting proclamations." The crowd roared with laughter, and I could almost hear the wheels turning in Karen's head. generating steam like a cartoon villain. I had never intended to channel Shakespeare, but the righteous actor in me couldn't resist embellishing the absurdity. Only I could find myself in an electrical duel over property rights. At least it wasn't a squabble over HOA fees. Just then, Tommy, with the charm of a court jester, decided to up the ante. "What's next, Karen? Are you going to demand my home as your personal gym? Because I have a lovely property lined with green grasses just begging to be tread on." He mimicked a cheesy pouting face, raising great guffaws from our audience, many of whom were filming the entire episode on their phones. Oh boy, this was becoming a neighborhood-wide spectacle, and part of me loved having thousands of views just waiting to happen. I could imagine all those juicy comments about entitled suburbanites. Forget the reality show. I was ready to pitch Ethan versus Karen to a network and cash in on this spectacle. But only if I could emerge victorious from the tantalizing tension that hung in the air, like a thick cloud of anticipation. Yet, as laughter echoed around me, I noticed Karen's piercing blue eyes slowly shifting colors, darkening with the weight of embarrassment and fury. The spike of adrenaline still coursing through me, I realized I shouldn't underestimate her. Behind that well-practiced poise and tailored blazers lay a formidable force. She was not just here to be the punchline of our delirious neighborhood narrative. Oh no, she wasn't about relinquishing her comfort to become the resident joke. I dared to imagine the thoughts racing through her head, crafting more elaborate revenge plans, maybe involving fake property notices, or sudden HOA regulations set against electric chargers. The thought sent chills down my spine, but also fueled my resolve. My driveway would stand, corded to the sun, a testament against the tyranny of entitled demands. Then came the moment I had half anticipated and half dreaded. Karen launched into a full theatrical rant, her arms waving dramatically as she declared her unyielding rights. "You think this is over, Ethan? I won't let you and your eco-friendly gadgets trample the very foundations of traditional community values," she bellowed, her voice echoing through the street. In her fury, I caught the glint of a potential lawsuit brewing, guidance from her legally inclined friends no doubt against my mischief. But rather than breaking under her Montana-sized bravado, something snapped inside me. I thought about the electricity coursing through my charger, the laughter of my friends, and the funny little chants of electricity, innovation, that had sprouted among the onlookers. Old values? I hollered back, my heart racing. Surely, you could do better than the unyielding belief that squatting on someone's driveway is a property tactic. Ethan's got a point. If only Karen could power the neighborhood with her indignation. Tommy shot back, barely containing his bubbling laughter. The crowd erupted in a riot of giggles, and I could see the tide turning away from Karen's supernova of chaos. The onlookers were creating a sense of unity. They reveled in the absurdity of the showdown. Each chuckle was a battle cry against the ingrained entitlement that had plagued our community for so long. This felt like more than just a fight for property rights. It had transformed into a stand against the narcissism that tainted our tranquil neighborhood. In feeling their support, I suddenly knew that whatever Karen had planned would have to contend with the combined momentum of our humorous rebellion. As the laughter died down, I sensed a significant shift in Karen's demeanor. She looked torn between her usual air of entitlement and the ridiculousness of this whole debacle. The tension had transformed. It was no longer just a verbal brawl, but had become a showdown of perceptions. Maybe an epiphany had struck as she stared down the concrete expanse of my driveway. A moment when she recognized she was no longer in command. I watched closely as her blue eyes, once brimming with indignation, seemed to waver. "Is this what it's come to, Ethan? Laughing at my expense?" she stuttered, almost as if she was attempting to reclaim her narrative. I felt a twinge of empathy, yet it quickly morphed into a newfound rebellious glee. I had to see this through to the end. In that brilliant moment under the sun-drenched sky, with the distant giggling of neighbors harmonizing in my ears, I gathered my wits and raised my chin defiantly. "Actually, Karen, it's not about laughing at you. It's about confronting the absurdity that comes with your self-proclaimed authority. You may hold a tight grip on your entitlement, but we're asserting our right to laugh in the face of absurdity. My driveway is my sanctuary, and it's going to remain my happy electric haven. Now, shall we call it a draw? Or do you want me to electrify this showdown even further?" The crowd erupted in cheers and laughter, as if on cue, building that electric camaraderie that had sparked through the neighborhood. Karen stood there, caught between self-righteous fury and sheer disbelief, the weight of the absurdity crashing down like an avalanche. It was an electrifying script worthy of its own award. What could she possibly say in response to that? Whatever future drama she conjured would have to contend with my electrified stand, and little did she realize she had just become a delightful chapter in our current saga of suburban theatrics. Would she learn to either play nice or forever remain the perennial punchline? I felt confident, no matter what happened next, that this riveting episode would become a persistent legend in our neighborhood lore. Thanks for tuning into this insane entitled Karen story. If you're craving more wild Karen showdowns, check out our video on the right. Or if you trust YouTube's instincts, pick the one on the left. Whichever you choose, brace yourself. There's plenty more meltdown madness where today's story came from.